I'm Sakitha Osborne, and today on Special Edition, we're talking about some of the issues surrounding Standing Rock and the people who support the movement. Special Edition spoke with several artists to hear a little bit about their background and how they got involved in the protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline. Rising Appalachia brings to the stage a beautiful mix of folk music and a passion for social justice. Leah and Chloe's passion for music reaches far beyond the stage and compels the audience to be socially aware.
Leah and I, as young women in the world on separate paths in our 20s, were both activists in the more literal sense of the word. I was doing environmental activism in Northern California with some of the redwood anti-deforestation tactics, and Leah was in Latin America. And so we were doing that sort of community work before we were musicians. And so then naturally, things sort of crossed over when we started playing music.
And I think with music, you have an international language, and we do our very best to create music that is appealing to a wide range of people, to a wide spectrum of ages or interests or politics or religions, that it's available within a concert. That will create a space where then dialogue can happen, and then conversations can happen about more of the issues, you know, and we're not there to preach our beliefs, but to create a space where maybe those dialogues can happen and conversations can happen between people who maybe aren't always going to agree. The music came secondarily to our lives as very involved citizens in the world.
Occupy the bayou, occupy the sound waves, cause we will not be lied to. Occupy your bank account, occupy your healthcare, occupy your garden, cause oh my dear, you best beware. Occupy your mother tongue, occupy your neighborhood, occupy reality, deliver depth the best you could. Occupy your homeland, occupy your public schools, occupy the pen and ink, occupy the law and rule, occupy Wall Street, occupy your corner store, occupy the sound waves, occupy the front door, occupy Wall Street, occupy your basic rights, occupy America, and when it's time, step up to fight and no more weeping and wailing, no more Big Bang Bailey, no more weeping and wailing, gonna occupy my mind. Whoa, whoa.
Ryan Vizzions, one of the most viral photographers from the Standing Rock movement, started his career in a most unusual way. Finding a passion for showing the world through his lens, his work has turned into something truly inspirational.
I bought a camera, and when I showed up in Thailand, it was during the red shirt protests. And when I went there, I ended up going into what was kind of the rebel compound, and everybody assumed I was a journalist, because why would a crazy white guy be in Thailand during a civil war? And that kind of inspired me to get into activism. And when I came home, the only thing that really got me out of depression was shooting photos. My father had committed suicide, so I found that shooting photos really gave me something to focus on and put my energy towards. When I was in Thailand, my photography was horrible. I didn't know the first thing about photography. I just had a camera and I was trying to capture what was happening. Now when I came home to Atlanta, I still wanted to explore and shoot photos, so I started doing what's called urban exploring. I would go into abandoned buildings and schools, and that's really where I started to develop my style of landscapes and things along those natures, landscapes and cityscapes. And for a long time I was really focused on shooting cityscapes and street photography and things along that nature. Over the years, there was a couple situations in Atlanta where things arose for social justice, so I went there. I wanted to document what was taking place. And on social media, I saw on September 3rd when Amy Goodman and some other journalists were at Standing Rock where they were attacked by private security dogs.
Seeing the chaos unfold, Ryan was inspired to tell the story his way.
I wasn't too aware about Native American culture, but I felt that that was a violation on civil and human rights. Things like that happened in Selma, and I just felt compelled to go. I knew that there wasn't mainstream media that were there covering that, and it was something that was very important. So I actually made a joke on Facebook asking somebody if they had $1,000 to send me to Standing Rock, and somebody who supports my photography actually said, yeah. So they gave me $1,000 and I went out there for 3-4 days. And I was so inspired to see this culture that was fighting with prayer against a corporation. And they were walking in a good way. And I felt like it was important for me to be there because there wasn't much media coverage. So I came back home and I quit my job, raised some funds, put my stuff in storage and took off. And that was that. And I was there for about 6 months.
We supported Standing Rock from afar for a long time, and really discussed a lot internally if it made sense for us to show up on the ground, or if that was a bit of a tokenized role. And the last thing that we want to do is sort of pay lip service to something and not really step into the fire. For Chloe and I, it was remarkably life-changing experience, and the power that was garnered there on the ground, the amazing resiliency, the sort of piecemeal village mentality where so many folks were working together in an absolutely grassroots way to stand up for something that wasn't as much about protest as it was about prayer and about really creating a unified and very peaceful response. And I think we haven't had a movement like that for a long time. And I think that it's really important to see a different way of resisting kind of a corporate takeover. You know, I don't know that we're gonna win battles by fighting fire with fire. I think it was an amazingly powerful place to step up and put our feet on the ground.
Expected to carry crude oil from the Bakken oil field to Illinois, the roughly 1,200-mile Dakota Access Pipeline is nearly complete, except for a section under the Missouri River near the encampment. The fight over the $3.8 billion project has caused a bridge blockade on a main road. The chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe says because of the closure, emergency services can't get through, and that's a liability in itself.
We don't have any place else to go. These are our only remaining homelands. We have to protect them. Enough's enough.
Since 2006, there's been a rush of companies coming into the state of North Dakota to develop oil. But here at Standing Rock, we have a resolution that goes back all the way to 2007 that says we don't want any pipelines to cross our ancestral lands. But yet, in 2014, they're starting to steamroll the Dakota Access Pipeline through, threatening our water.
What is there to protest?
They are determined to stop your project.
They will not stop our project. That's naive. They're not stopping our project.
Rising Appalachia has been doing a lot of work supporting Standing Rock from afar, and yeah, give it up. And I feel like the stories of the movement of Standing Rock have touched so many of our lives as a way to bring prayer back into protest, a way to be a protector without taking it into aggression. And we did a lot of work supporting Standing Rock from afar. We did fundraising. We worked with the amazing community that's also here with us, the herbal medic clinic that's here from Standing Rock. And yeah. We were invited by the Indigenous International Youth Council to go show up on the ground at Standing Rock. Yeah. And so we went. Chloe and I flew over, just the two of us, and we were part of a concert that was put on by the Youth Council that was 4 different women-run groups of music and poetry from 4 different walks of the medicine circle. And we sat on the ground for 2 days. We spent Thanksgiving on the ground at Standing Rock with an amazing community of elders, teachers, song keepers, and it was a powerful thing to be part of a living indigenous movement, to be part of indigenous leadership in a time that we really don't see enough of that. So this next song we want to send out to all the water protectors of Standing Rock, to all the folks who are holding on to the ground up there. If we can all keep an eye on all of this and figure out how to be the protectors of our homelands in any way, this is for us.
The only thing that keeps me going is prayer. And I have to have faith that my prayers are being heard, because there's a company that's saying, we're gonna build this no matter what. And they'll say this pipeline will never break. It's gonna break. And who's gonna pay the cost?
I think Standing Rock is still and will remain an example, I mean, fingers crossed, of a successful movement that, like Leah said, is about the pipeline, but then when we went there, we realized it was expanding so far out of the pipeline itself into, resiliency period, indigenous-led movements, youth and elder circles of power and influence. So I think a lot of people's lives globally were quite affected by that movement, and I'm sure it will be happening more in the years to come. I think for myself, going there and just our work in general, as far as being artists and then stepping into movements and trying to merge the two, is an ongoing question and is an ongoing learning curve for us that is a really exciting journey to be on. But we've yet to sort of, dot the period at the end of that question of like, oh, this is, what we stand for, this is what we're doing with our music. It's kind of constantly evolving. So we are performers, we're singers, our main work is from the stage. And then every year and every month and every tour, we're figuring out how to cross-pollinate in deeper ways off stage.
Yeah, get off of the
So
stage.
that is constantly growing for us, and it's some of our most important and interesting work outside of songwriting. It's just, we have some permaculture action days that we've been really excited to do throughout 2016, where we take some of the energy that we muster up with a show, either pre or post show, and go into garden centers or urban neighborhoods or farms or what have you, and literally get down and dirty and farm and build gardens and learn the permaculture stuff, or showing up at Standing Rock, or going into, Leah does work in prisons, and just trying to learn how to show up in more long-term ways through our music and through our art.
And they set the dogs on us and they started spraying us. Before I got sprayed, I seen dogs biting people indiscriminately, including Dakota Access Pipeline workers.
The day that the dogs attacked the water protectors, the day before, the tribe had actually in court marked where this land was sacred land for burial grounds. The next day on a weekend, the Energy Transfer Partners took their construction crew and jumped 25 miles of their route to go specifically to where these graves were marked and started digging them up.
My son's buried on top of the hills here. And I said, who would build a pipeline next to my son's grave? Who would do that? And so I told Dakota Access, remember me, remember my face. I will be standing there. I wasn't an activist or any of these things. I'm a mom.
So when the water protectors went out there to stand against them, then they had attack dogs put on them. That's where I first started to realize that there was something more going on, that it just wasn't a legal war. They're really just pushing themselves through what is technically unceded treaty territory. The land where that actually took place was never given to the government. They just took it. In the original 1851 Laramie Treaty, that land actually belongs to the Sioux tribes.
The place where they're building the pipeline is unceded territory according to U.S. treaties. It is actually Sioux Nation land that they never ceded to the U.S. government. And the U.S. government acknowledges it. That's why they've offered them money to compensate them for the land that they took. And Sioux Nation has $1.3 billion waiting for them if they take that offer. And they say, no, we never asked for your money. That is our land, and you know it because it's in the treaties, and you've offered us money for that land. We do not accept your money. That is Sioux Nation territory. So they have a lot of the law on their side, yet they've got the tanks facing against them. I think what they need is the American people on their side.
That's why I went, because I was watching rights be violated, not only by the hands of corporate money, but also letting it happen through our government system. And it wasn't getting the coverage that I felt it needed to get, so I just wanted to go out there and try to do my small part to help where I could. Where it went from there, I never would have expected. I just went there to try to show my friends back home what was happening. And through that and some of the photos, it just took off to a whole new level. I went out there for one reason and it ended up turning into something way bigger. There was people that were working on their own different angles, how to push out the same message, but it was all for the same common goal. And it was really awesome to see people work together. There was always that, at first, when you'd come, something like that's never really happened before, so a lot of the Native communities were very standoffish about allies coming and worried about people trying to appropriate the situation. But some of us that were there for a long time, they realized, okay, we could trust these people. They're here for the right reasons. They're not just here to take the photos of the poverty porn. And we started developing relationships and working together, and that's kind of how I led into working with Ocheti Shikoe Media. But artists from all around the world came out. John Trudell's daughter was there, Rising Appalachia was there. I met Dave Matthews. Actually, Neil Young, on his birthday, came to camp, didn't tell anybody he was coming, and he just walked through camp playing his guitar for his birthday. It wasn't a big show or anything like that. A lot of celebrities as well. I feel that some of the celebrities might have came out there to get their 2 minutes of shine, but there's a lot of people that came out there that supported the cause and really did do a lot of good things. A lot of musicians in particular. It was awesome to see so many people come together what essentially is in the middle of nowhere. So to see everybody congregate from all different communities around the world to one spot to stand for the same thing was something that was amazing.
My name's Dennis, and I'm from Sweden. The water in this fight doesn't stop here. This stand may take place here in the U.S., right here at Standing Rock, but it doesn't stop here because the water that runs in our streams back home in Sweden, that we fish our fish from, that we drink from, it's the same water. It's the same water all over the planet. This is not just one nation's fight or one tribe's fight. This concerns all of us.
I think the relationship between social justice and activism and art go hand in hand because you need one to have the other. They inspire each other. And many times the art is what can capture the spirit of the movement that can make people that aren't aware of what's going on want to pay attention because they're seeing something that captures their imagination, or you could take a photo and it paints a picture of what's actually going on. Standing Rock really opened up the eyes to a lot of people, made people realize that just because it's not your issue directly now doesn't mean that you shouldn't stand up for other people that are going through problems.
This is your fight, that if you don't take up and you don't promote and stand up for it now, you end up saying, why am I being run through? Why do I have lead in my water? Why is my water poisoned? Why do I have to move? It's because you failed to stand and act now.
Going out there, it showed me that I could use photography for a purpose more than just taking pictures. One of my photos, Defend the Sacred, multiple celebrities had shared it. When it went viral, it hit 100 million people in 2 days. It went around the world. That really showed me that you can make an impact with art. You can make an impact with photography. And for me, I feel that now I have a chance to actually use that to help people. Because we live in a climate where even though it's not affecting you now, if you let it slide now, it could definitely affect you. And we're supposed to be a country that's the land of the free and justice for all and equality, and we have to stand by those standards and stand next to our brothers and sisters. What happened out at Standing Rock has inspired not only tribes, but different groups around the world to stand up, especially for sovereign rights and environmental rights. It gave a lot of tribes in the United States. The Native American communities are some of the most oppressed communities in the United States. Reservations are essentially POW camps. Standing Rock has about 78% unemployment. Alcoholism runs crazy through Native American culture. And Standing Rock showed people that you can stand up and you can be strong. And even if you're coming from a community that's getting beat down, you can find unity and stand up for things that you were afraid to stand up before.
When we finally stopped actively killing Native Americans for the crime of living here before us, we then proceeded to violate every treaty we made with the tribes, every single treaty. We piled crime on top of crime on top of crime against the people whose offense against us was simply that they lived where we wanted to live.
The Mother Earth is Unchimaka, the grandmother of everything. And the water is her blood, and to this blood we live.
We've been here for thousands of years. We have always been citizens of these lands.
But whenever there's a resource that needs to be exploited. Our lands just kept getting taken. We didn't have say. And that has been inflicted on our people for over 200 years.
Native Americans have some of the highest rates of poverty, dropout rates, suicide rates, being victims to police aggression and violence.
When I came out to Standing Rock, I wasn't too aware of the issue with the pipeline. I went out there for the civil and human rights issues. But I'm also not a very spiritual person. But just because I'm not doesn't mean you don't have the right to be. And everybody has a right to believe what they want. I did get success from it, but I want to make sure I continue to use it in a good way and not take advantage of it, and continue to help people that need it where I can, and not appropriate the situation. That's the hardest part, especially being a white ally, is to make sure you don't go into these situations and appropriate it. Find out where you can help and if they want it, and then go from there. I want to focus on the issues that matter to people. My success doesn't matter to me as much as it does being able to use that as a platform to help other people. I can tell you at the height of my Facebook page that I was running during the height of all the conflict at Standing Rock, I was averaging 40 million reach a week. I had a photo of Wesley Clark Jr., whose father was a 4-star general, down on his knees begging for forgiveness from Leonard Crodog, who's a medicine man that was at Wounded Knee 73. That photo was shared 47,000 times off my page alone. And social media and social activism and art and activism does capture people's attention that may not be aware of the issues. And I know firsthand that what happened at Standing Rock and the social media side of activism has affected the world. When that page started to grow, I gained about 200,000 followers in like 3 weeks. Now it's up to past 250,000, almost 300,000, and it's from all around the world, not just here in the United States. We have to be able to have a voice for ourselves, and it did give people that voice, and now people are starting to learn more about these issues that are going on around not only the country but the world, and how many of them are really connected. So Standing Rock did give traction to what's happening right now in the social climate, and just taking a stance for what you believe in. I believe in that 100%.
As of today, the pipeline is completed. The lawsuit against the Army Corps of Engineers is still pending, and the Sioux Tribe's attorney has filed a motion to stop its operations. I'm Sakitha Osborne, and this has been another special edition.
This is not a peaceful protest, so if they want to stick around and continue to do what they're doing, great, but we're building the pipeline.
How do you feel with them coming on treaty land? How do you feel in your own land of your ancestors? How do you feel?
I feel disrespected. I feel hurt. You know, I feel this hurt that these guys won't never understand. You know, I try to tell them, but you know, the only reason why we're moving back is because they're armed, batons, tear gas, riot gear, weapons, rubber bullets. That's what it takes for them to push us back. They carry weapons because they're scared.
Going to Standing Rock to defend water rights for Native Americans. It's time for us veterans to stand up for our own and our own soil. That's what we're there to do.
We have to think to the next 7 generations how this is going to affect them.
Walking with this, I know your face and I trust you. Find your teachers in the voice of the
You okay? You okay? Here. All right.
Remedies are bountiful and surround us from the garden to the farthest. Prayer made of stardust. Find your healing in the music that calls you, the voice that enthralls you. What do you belong to? Eyes out, there's a setting of the sun. Give thanks to each and every one. The lesson is the medicine woman. Medicine man.
Why are we not all heading there as people, not just veterans, but Americans?
Medicine woman. Medicine man. Walking with kids, I know your face and I trust you.
All this you see right here is just that we need to stop it, you know? They're basically on ACE property, which is the Army Corps of Engineers land, and it shouldn't even be up there. So we have every right. This is a sovereign nation right here. This is sovereign people's land right here.